Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about Bardraghon Murmurations. Wait, what? What is Bardraghon Murmurations? Yes, that is a new term, and I will define it. Thanks for your patience. I'll get to it right away. All right. So first of all, I need to define both terms. What is a Bardraghon? A Bardraghon is a D&D commentator. I'm a Bardraghon, okay? Nerd Immersion is a Bardraghon. DM Bloodsworth is a Bardraghon. We are all D&D commentators. What does it take to be a D&D commentator? Well, I think you need to publicly commentate, make comments on the state of Dungeons and Dragons seasonally, and you need to have been doing it for 3 years in a row, and you need to have done it within the last 3 years. That's a Bardraghon. Now, to tell the truth, I am a very proud Bardraghon. I'm a very proud D&D commentator. I'm proud of the work I do. I'm an independent D&D commentator, and I'm very proud of that. And I would really love to add on a bunch more qualities of a Bardraghon that I just happen to match, right? But I'm going to be humble here, right? So, a Bardraghon is simply a D&D commentator, someone who commentates on Dungeons & Dragons seasonally, at least once every season, every 3 months, right? Winter, summer, fall, spring, and they've done it for 3 years, and they've done it within the last 3 years, right? So that's what a D&D commentator is. All right. So why do we need this word? Well, I appreciate your patience. I look at Dungeons & Dragons in a way that nobody else looks at it, and I discuss a topic for 6 to 18 months, and I don't know if you've been noticing this, but Dungeons & Dragons just absolutely is going. It is a spinning top, flying, just sending off cinder sparks in every direction at this point. There is so much that is connected to Dungeons & Dragons through intellectual property expansion. There's so much that is happening with Dungeons & Dragons, with physical product connections, with the actual D&D canon hardbacks, with fiction that's coming off of Dungeons & Dragons, with video games that are coming off of Dungeons & Dragons, with the movie coming up. It's incredible. Like, there's just so much happening with it. So, but the stuff I'm usually discussing about Dungeons & Dragons is 5 years. Nobody will be discussing it for 5 years. I'm on it now. The rest of the world will catch up in 5 years, right? This has already happened. I was like, hey, Dungeons & Dragons is more than the game. Right now on Twitter, you will find no shortage of people talking about Dungeons & Dragons very actively about you being used for therapy, saying, hey, yeah, 100%. It's definitely more than the game, right? And so, and the stuff I'm talking about, this intellectual property expansion, world bridging, and these kind of concepts are going to be narrative innovation, world bridging, all these kind of things are going to be discussed openly by more people. But 5 years from now, I'll be on something new about Dungeons & Dragons. I can tell you that right now. So, and in order to have these discussions, it's just like anything else that involves practical research. I need language to talk about it, right? And so, we have to make this stuff as concise as possible. So I create new words so that we can very quickly, concisely discuss deep topics, so we can get deeper into these topics in a shorter amount of time, right? And jargon is a thing. It's used in every major discipline, and I'm building a discipline around D&D meta, and that's why I use different language than most people, right? So a Bardraghon is Bard, dragon, you can see the spelling above, right? It's a unique term that I have coined in order to quickly identify a D&D commentator, right? And just like there is a discipline around journalism, I'm trying to develop a discipline around D&D commentary, okay? And no joke, there are 1,000 people who are Bardraghons at this point, and that's no exaggeration. There are, Ginny D, there's a ton of us, right? There's a lot of us, okay? And we all go about it a little differently, and then we're still debating the ethics of Bardraghoning, right? All these kind of things. But so Bardraghon, D&D commentator. All right, I'm a Bardraghon. You listen to me, right? And generally, you understand the words that I say, right? You're like, okay, okay. So you're saying that when Lego created an official D&D product, they bridged every Lego world to every single Dungeons and Dragons world, in your humble opinion. Yes, that's correct. You have understood me as a Bardraghon and the audible communication that I have sent forward. Okay? So and then you listen to Nerd Immersion, and he's like, hey, here's information about the new Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves and its release date. You have understood the words he has said as a Bardraghon. Okay? Now, let's talk about murmurations. Okay? Starlings are birds here in the IRL. Right? In our real world, there are birds that are called starlings. Starlings create murmurations. What is a murmuration? A murmuration is so a bird can communicate. Have trouble whistling here. Tweet, 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 tweet. Right? That is the audible sound that a bird makes. So that's one way that a bird communicates with other birds. It also might be communicating with a human, saying, hey, I'm here, look at me, right? So birds can communicate with humans, and birds can communicate. Now, that communication is incredibly limited with humans, but a bird can audibly communicate with another bird. But these birds, especially starlings, do something in addition to audible communication. They communicate through murmurations. What are murmurations? Well, when starlings fly into the air, they create murmurations. A murmuration is the shape of the birds in a moving flock. So birds flock, they fly together in flocks, right? When they are in murmurations, they have created very distinct shapes. They can create the shape of a sphere. They can create the shape of an infinity symbol. They can create the shape of, some people have even seen them create shapes that are distinctly recognizable to humans as specific things, right? And so people are like, whoa, wait, what's happening here? Because this is a different level of communication, okay? First of all, every bird in that flock is communicating to themselves to form their proximity, right? They are forming their proximity from every single bird around them, and and they are also communicating their proximity and their positioning in mass. Okay? So a murmuration, there is communication between the birds to form the murmuration. In addition, the murmuration is communicating something specific to the external viewer, right? Now, what is that? What are birds communicating with the shapes contained within their murmuration? What are they communicating with the frequency of what a shape is chosen to be in the murmuration, right? We are still answering these questions about birds. Let's talk about Bardraghon murmuration, right? You hear me speak as one distinct voice on the status, the morality, the philosophy, the state, the positioning, the cultural impacts, the religious impacts, the political impacts of Dungeons and Dragons. You understand that. You hear me. You understand most of it. Often I think some of the things I'm saying are missed. But I think generally in mass they're understood. Okay? But what about Bardraghon murmurations? So what happened? Okay, so we're going to see a Bardraghon murmuration in exactly 1 month. Okay? What's going to happen is Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, is going to drop. It's going to drop late November. Okay? And everybody, all the cool kids who got the bundle, which is the physical and the digital, will get early access to the digital, and they'll get the physical, right? And when that happens, the Bardraghons, the D&D commentators, are going to begin to talk about Dragonlance, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, and you're going to hear our our maws flapping. We're going to say, oh, I think Tiamat is Tiamat called Tikisas in this book. I think it's doing something special with its green head, right? And then Nerd Immersion is going to say the layout out in this book is particularly good, and OGGM is going to say, I don't own Dragonlance, Dragon of the Shadow of the Dragon Queen. I've never seen it, but here's 9 different opinions about it, right? Okay, you've heard each of our audible sounds, what we're communicating with our mouths, right? But how are we positioning in the flock? We're all moving in a similar direction, and we are positioning ourselves in proximity, right? Each one of us has a distinct view on the politics, the culture, the religion, statements that are being made within Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, right? But we are actually having conversations between ourselves in very subtle ways that does not contain, it might be the frequency of how. So not our words, but like the frequency. Do I do 1 video a day on Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen? Or do I do 7, right? What does that say to OGGM? What does that say to DM Bloodsworth? What does that say to Nerd Immersion? What does that say to Dungeon Craft? And they may not see my specific videos, right? Some of them may see all of them. Some may see none of them. Some may see some of them, right? But they also will get metrics in their own package, right? That gives them ideas of, oh, Shadow of the Dragon Queen, this hashtag is doing this type of analytics right now, right? But not just the frequency, but overall, like, what if they don't see many YouTube D&D Bardraghons even talking about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen at all? Or what if everyone is talking about it at a higher rate than was talked about for Radiant Citadel, right? We are giving information that is communicating our positioning to each other. Okay? So we're communicating with each other in ways that are not even with our verbal speech, right? But then we are approaching the point, I am convinced, we are approaching the point, I have some incredibly intelligent viewers on this channel. Viewers that are a lot smarter than me, right? And I can tell you right now, I have viewers who are watching Nerd Immersion, Professor Dungeon Master, OGGM, DM Bloodsworth, DM James, Ginny D, me, and 10 others, right? They are the first people who are positioned to recognize, to be they're already happening. Bardraghon Murmurations are already happening. What's happening now is we are positioning the first D&D commentator viewers, the first Bardraghon watchers. There are bird watchers, there are Bardraghon watchers, who will identify the first Bardraghon Murmurations. Communication coming from the flock of Bardraghon. And there will be messages within those murmurations. Within the Bardraghon Murmurations, there are going to be messages which are understood, in my opinion, by 1 to 10 people this year. I think this year, 2022, will be the first year where you have Bardraghon watchers actually identifying a new level of messaging, a new level of communication on Dungeons & Dragons, which are the Bardraghon Murmurations. The proximity, the movement of D&D commentators in context to one another. In order to understand these Bardraghon Murmurations, they will need to understand not only the audible language content, they will need to understand deep patterns about understanding how Dungeons & Dragons impacts American politics, American culture, American religion, and how the flow and the communication. Sly Flourish is in the mix. Teos Abadia is in the mix. Sean Merwin is in the mix. 100 top tier Twitterers in the mix. These murmurations are taking shape, right? We are the Bardraghons themselves are communicating, right? We're communicating our proximity to one another. A Bardraghon watcher for the first time this year in 2022, I think, will identify, understand, and see and recognize the first and be the first to recognize Bardraghon murmurations. All that is my humble opinion. I'm eager to hear yours. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.